The oven timer was still beeping when my daughter-in-law pointed at me and snapped, "Pay rent or get out." Still wearing the cardigan Olivia gave me, I folded the dish towel slowly, like I was the maid, not her husband's mother. As the scent of burned bacon thickened, my own son stood silent in the doorway, eyes on the floor. While she waited for me to beg, I walked upstairs and zipped the suitcase she didn't know I'd already packed. That's when I remembered, I co-signed the mortgage. They live in like owners. So I left quietly and took the house with me. All right, before we dive into this crazy story, do me a favor, subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. Snow always made Christmas feel gentler until that morning. Flakes drifted past the kitchen window, turning the Minneapolis street into a quiet white tunnel. Inside, the house smelled like cinnamon rolls and bacon. Marjorie moved slowly between stove and counter, favoring her bad knee, humming an old carol under her breath. She'd been up since before dawn, old nurse habits. She'd set the table with the good plates Brittany kept in the high cabinet, laid out cloth napkins, even put the little painted dish Olivia had made her in second grade at the end of the table. M for Grandma Margie, the crooked letters said. Cozy, Olivia had called Christmas breakfast last year. It feels like cozy. Marjorie had thought about that word all week, while she whisked eggs and peeled potatoes and pretended not to hear the tense whispers behind closed doors. The oven timer beeped. The breakfast casserole, hash browns, sausage, cheese was bubbling and golden. She slid it out carefully, steam fogging her glasses. For just a moment, watching it settle, she let herself imagine the morning she wanted. Sleepy good mornings, Olivia's laughter, Ethan's arm around his daughter, Brittany maybe even saying thank you. Footsteps thundered down the stairs. Marjorie straightened, smoothing her red cardigan. Brittany appeared first, sharp against the soft light. Her ponytail was pulled back so tight it looked painful. Her cream sweater and leggings were spotless. No trace of Christmas pajamas, no hint of having just rolled out of bed. Her eyes were already narrowed, like she was walking into a meeting she'd been dreading. Behind her, Ethan hovered at the bottom step, hands jammed into his pockets, shoulders slumped. He didn't come into the kitchen. He just stood there watching. "Morning," Marjorie said, trying to wrap the word in warmth. "Breakfast is ready. I thought we could." "Are you paying rent this month or what?" The spatula slipped in Marjorie's hand, clattering against the pan. Bacon grease hissed. She stared at Brittany, certain she'd misheard. "Brittany," she said softly, "it's Christmas. We can talk about money later." No, the word was flat hard. Brittany crossed her arms. "We're not kicking this down the road again. Are you paying rent, yes or no?" Ethan shifted his weight but stayed on the step. Marjorie felt the room tilt a little, her knee throbbing. "You know my social security won't be full until February," she began. "Once that starts, I can." "I'm not your social worker," Brittany snapped. "You've been here 3 months. That's not recovering from surgery, that's living here, that costs money. I cook, I help with Olivia, I do laundry. You leave your stuff everywhere, you complain about the stairs, you fiddle with the thermostat." Brittany shot back, voice rising. "I am done babysitting you." "Babysitting?" The word landed heavier than any insult. From the hallway, a soft shuffle. Olivia stepped into view, wrapped in an oversized hoodie, her hair in a messy bun, a colored pencil still tucked behind her ear. "What's going on?" she asked, voice small. "Merry Christmas." "Go sit down, Liv," Brittany said without looking at her. "This is between adults." Marjorie blinked slowly. She looked past Brittany, straight at her son. "Ethan," she said, "say something." He swallowed. "It's just tight right now, Mom," he muttered, eyes fixed on the tile. "The mortgage, the bills, Brittany been carrying a lot. If you could just help out more, like real rent." The oven timer beeped again, shrill and bright. No one moved. Olivia's eyes shone, her face pale. She looked from her mother to her father, then to Marjorie, as if someone had to stop this, someone had to be the adult. Her bottom lip trembled, her hands clenched at her sides. And as Brittany stood there waiting for an answer, Olivia froze in the doorway, tears spilling over, silent and stunned, while Marjorie felt something inside her go very, very still. Marjorie moved first. She set the spatula down, folded the dish towel once, and left the kitchen without a word. No one stopped her. No one followed. Upstairs in the small guest room that had become hers, she closed the door quietly and just stood there listening. Muffled voices drifted up, Brittany sharp, Ethan dull, the clink of plates, no Olivia. "Hey." Arnie protested as she crossed to the closet. She pulled down her old rolling suitcase, set it on the bed, and unzipped it. The sound was too loud in the little room. She packed like someone doing a familiar chore, 2 pairs of jeans, a few sweaters, underwear, socks, her pill organizer, toiletries, the blue flannel snowman pajamas Olivia had given her last Christmas, the framed photo of the two of them at the zoo, cheeks squished together mid-laugh. She didn't take everything, just what she'd need if this became permanent. Her hands were steady. From the nightstand drawer, she took out the small metal lockbox, scuffed from years of being moved but still solid. The key was taped to the bottom, exactly where she'd left it. Inside lay the important things: her will, her husband's death certificate, the old deed to the house they'd sold, Ethan's power of attorney papers, and a thick refinance packet with the current address printed across the top. She didn't read it now, she only felt the weight of it in her hand. All of it went into the suitcase. Her phone buzzed Grace. "You okay? Can you drive?" Marjorie typed. "Already have boots on," came back, 10 minutes. On the dresser, the ugly little star ornament waited, glitter dulled, one point chipped. Olivia had slipped it off the tree the night before and brought it up. "In case you want your own Christmas," she'd said. Marjorie wrapped it in a pair of wool socks and tucked it into the front pocket of the suitcase. Dragging the bag into the hallway, she heard the wheels bump and squeak against the wood. At the top of the stairs, she caught a glimpse of the kitchen. Brittany rigid at the island, Ethan's shoulders hunched, both of them staring up at her like she'd broken script. "What are you doing?" Ethan asked. "Exactly what you suggested," she said. "I'm getting out." At the front door, she pulled on her coat and boots. Snow-bright light flooded in when she opened it, cold air cutting through the smell of burned casserole. "Grandma," Olivia whispered, slipping through the doorway and wrapping her arms around her. Her face crumpled against Marjorie's chest. "I'm so sorry." Marjorie held her close, stroked her hair. "Don't apologize for adults who behave like children," she said quietly. A car turned into the driveway, Grace S. The lockbox pressed against her side, heavy and full of things she'd never really looked at. As she walked toward the car, leaving the warm house behind, one thought settled in her like fresh snow. They thought they'd told her to get out. They had no idea what she was about to take from them when she did. Grace's house smelled like strong coffee and lemon cleaner, not cinnamon and judgment. "Sit," Grace said, already tugging Marjorie's coat off her shoulders. "You look like someone took a bat to your insides." Marjorie lowered herself onto the couch, her knee thumping, a reminder that her body still hadn't caught up to the morning. The suitcase waited by the door, the metal lockbox bulging the front pocket like a secret. She told it straight. No dramatics, no tears, just the facts. The breakfast, the demand, Ethan staring at the floor while Brittany called her a burden. By the time she got to Olivia's apology at the door, Grace's jaw was clenched so tight a muscle twitched in her cheek. "She said that," Grace murmured, "in a house you helped them buy." "I just signed what Ethan brought me," Marjorie said. "It was supposed to be temporary, like I'm supposed to be." Grace's eyes sharpened. "Get the box." Marjorie fetched it, set it on the coffee table, and turned the key. Papers, neatly stacked, filled the little metal coffin. The old deed, her will, power of attorney naming Ethan, and the refinance packet with the current address. Grace didn't even try to read it all. She grabbed her phone instead. "I'm calling Calvin," she said. "This smells like help us, Mom," with footnotes. "Is that really necessary?" Marjorie asked, though a small, stubborn part of her hoped the answer was yes. Grace was already on speaker. "Cal, it's Grace, elder mess, co-signed house, Christmas ultimatum, we've got documents." "On my way," came the reply. "Don't have her touch a pen." He arrived with snow still on his coat, dropped it over a chair, and bent over the table without much small talk. Reading glasses on, pen in hand, he moved through decades of her life in minutes. "Here's your old place, clean," he muttered. "Will's out of date, but that's another day. Power of attorney interesting, and this," he tapped the refinance packet. "This is the fun part." He rotated it toward her, finger resting on the signature lines. "See this?" he said. "Borrowers, plural. You're not a one-time helper, Marjorie. You are on the primary mortgage for their current house. Every time they've refinanced, they've needed you on board." He flipped through renewal notices. "Looks like they've done it more than once. Lower rates, likely some cash out. Did anyone ever tell you they needed your consent each time?" Marjorie stared at her neat signature, marching across page after page. Something inside her went very still. "No," she said. "He said it was bank stuff." Grace let out a low, furious whistle. Calvin leaned back, studying her. "Then here's what they didn't bother to mention," he said quietly. "If you formally pull your authorization and step off this loan, the bank can refuse to play ball anymore." He held her gaze. "In plain language, Marjorie, if you walk away, they can lose the house." The bank building felt colder than the sidewalk. Marjorie followed Calvin through the glass doors, her boots leaving damp prints on the polished floor. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, washing everything in a tired, pale glow. "Almost done," Calvin murmured, guiding her to a side office. "We're just putting in writing what you've already decided." The woman behind the desk wore a navy blazer and a holiday pin shaped like a snowflake. She glanced at the printed form, then at Marjorie. "This is your statement," she asked. "You're withdrawing consent to be on the refinance." "Yes," Marjorie said. Her voice sounded calm even to her. The woman slid the affidavit closer and pointed. "Sign and date here, please." The words on the page were dense, but Calvin had gone over every line at Grace's table the night before. One sentence stood out now: "I revoke any permission for my name or credit to be used in connection with this loan." She thought of Brittany's voice in the kitchen: "Pay rent or get out." Marjorie picked up the pen and signed her full name in firm strokes. No wobble, no hesitation. The woman stamped it, the sound sharp in the small room. "We'll forward this to our mortgage department today," she said. "It may delay or affect any active applications." "Good," Calvin said pleasantly, standing. "That's exactly what she intends." The delay arrived faster than anyone expected. 2 days later, Marjorie was at Grace's kitchen table, circling words in the newspaper crossword, when her phone started buzzing. Unknown number, then again, then again. By the fifth call, the caller ID updated: Brittany Lane. Grace raised an eyebrow from the stove. "Incoming storm." Marjorie flipped the phone face down and kept working on 7 down. A single word came to her so clearly she almost laughed: consequences. By late morning, the calls turned into texts. "What did you do?" "The bank is saying there's a problem with the refinance. They're putting everything on hold." "Answer your phone. We can fix this if you just stop being dramatic." Marjorie read them once and set the phone aside. An email pinged a few minutes later: "Ethan." Subject: "Mom, please." "Mom, we need to talk about the house. The bank says they can't move forward until some authorization issue is cleared up. Can we meet and sort this out? Please don't do something you can't undo. Love, Lay." Marjorie stared at the screen, feeling the old pull to make it easier for him. She opened a reply window. "Ethan, any questions about the house need to go through my attorney, Calvin Ross." "Mom." She hit send. For a long moment, she just listened to the quiet, Grace humming, the furnace kicking on, the faint scrape of branches against the window. Her chest felt lighter than it had in months. The next message was from Olivia. "Grandma, are you okay? Mom is freaking out about the refinance and saying you ruined everything. Dad isn't saying anything and it's awful here. Are you safe?" Marjorie's eyes stung. "I'm safe," she wrote. "I'm with a friend. None of this is your fault. Sometimes people get loud when they finally hear no." She hesitated, then added, "You asked if I'm okay." "More than ever." As she hit send, the screen lit up with a new incoming call. Brittany again, ringing and ringing, while Marjorie, for the first time in years, let it go on without her. The knock rattled the picture frames. Grace and Marjorie both looked up from the half-finished lighthouse puzzle on the dining table. Outside, the sky sagged low and gray, snow drifting past the window in slow, lazy sheets. Grace set her mug down. "That's not Amazon," she muttered, heading for the door. The pounding came again, 3 hard hits, too urgent to be polite. Marjorie's chest tightened, she already knew. "Is she here?" Ethan's voice, frayed, leaked down the hallway. "Please, I just need to talk to my mom." Grace's answer was flat. "She's not a suggestion box, Ethan, wipe your feet." He stepped into the dining room looking like he'd been dragged behind his own car, coat half-zipped, hair a mess, eyes red-rimmed. Snow clung to his pant legs. "Mom," he said, breathless, "the bank, they stopped the refinance. They said you filed something. Brittany is losing her mind." Marjorie folded her hands so he wouldn't see them want to shake. "I filed the truth," she said. "They're finally treating my name like it means something." He flinched. "It's not just that," he rushed on. His gaze flicked toward the kitchen where Grace was very obviously clattering pans. "We're under contract on another place, in Maple Grove. Bigger house, better schools, finished basement." "You're moving?" Marjorie asked, voice very calm. He corrected weakly. "The refinance was part of the down payment. Equity, debt consolidation, all that. Brittany has charts." He tried to smile, failed. "We were going to sell our place in the spring, get you set up in an assisted living near the new house, with staff activities. It was supposed to be easier." He looked at the puzzle pieces instead of at her face. "And when," Marjorie asked, "were you going to tell me you were selling the house I helped you buy?" He rubbed his hands over his face. "I didn't know how. Brittany kept saying we'd talk to you after closing once it was all lined up. Mom, I didn't know what to do." There it was, the boy in a man's body, always handing her the mess and the pen. She held his gaze. "I did." His eyes filled. "If you just talked to the bank, we could still." "No," she said. You wanted me to be the foundation and the afterthought at the same time. I chose. His phone buzzed on the table. A text flashed on the screen. Brittany, you're ruining our lives. If she fixed this, we are done. Ethan squeezed his eyes shut. Marjorie reached over and turned the phone face down between them. Seems your wife was very attached to that house, she said quietly. Funny, considering she never really owned it. Her own phone buzzed then, an unknown number she still recognized. You think you can just walk away from this? You have no idea what you've started. Marjorie read it once, a slow warmth spreading through her chest. Oh, she thought, settling back in her chair, they're finally about to find out. Brittany didn't just get mad, she went on tour. Grace's tablet buzzed nonstop on the counter as Marjorie rinsed her breakfast dish. Another notification rolled across the top. Imagine taking in family and having them financially sabotage you upside down face lesson learned. Grace tapped it, snorted, ah, today's performance. The post was a long, breathless paragraph over a filtered photo of their house in the snow. No names, but enough details that anyone who knew them would know. Some people take advantage of your kindness. Refuse to contribute. Then pull legal moves to trap you and your kid in a bad situation. Wow, Grace said, she forgot to tag you, rude. Marjorie's own phone buzzed on the table, screenshots from an old neighbor, a message from a church acquaintance. Is she talking about you? For a moment the urge rose. Explain, defend, type a careful paragraph that made everyone understand. She picked up the phone instead, held the side button and watched the screen go black. The sudden quiet was so complete she could hear the tick of the kitchen clock. Grace stared at her then grinned. That, she said, was a spiritual experience. Calvin's response wasn't spiritual, it was legal. By afternoon, an email landed in her inbox with several PDFs attached. As discussed, I've sent these to your son and his wife, he wrote. All communication regarding financial matters now goes through my office. Any further online smearing becomes evidence. Grace read the phrases harassment, defamatory insinuations, and cease and desist out loud with relish. You should bake him a cake, she said. Marjorie just poured more tea and watched the snow fall outside Grace's window, cars creeping past in cautious lines. The world looked so normal it was almost funny. The apartment came next. A modest senior building in a first-ring suburb, all neutral carpet and handrails and slow, warm elevators. The manager shook her hand firmly and didn't once ask, so what happened with your family? When Grace helped her move in, the little place echoed with emptiness. One bedroom, a balcony piled with snow, a kitchen with new appliances that no one complained she fussed with. This silence, Grace said, setting down a box, is what you've been paying for all those years and didn't know it. On Marjorie's second evening there, a padded envelope waited in the lobby mailbox, Olivia's careful handwriting on the front. Inside was a pencil drawing, two hands laced together, one lined and veined, one young, nail polish chipped. Tiny words were hidden in the shading if you leaned close, safe, always home. On the back, I can't post this, so I'm sending it where it actually matters. Love you. The next morning, Marjorie bought a simple frame at Walgreens and hung it on the wall opposite her bed. The apartment still smelled faintly of fresh paint and cardboard, but that one square of paper made it feel claimed. She was standing there studying it when her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Calvin, she's escalated, filed a claim, court date is set. Another text followed a beat later. You ready for everyone to hear what really happened inside that house? The courtroom was too warm, but Brittany still had a coat of frost in her voice. Marjorie sat at the defendant's table beside Calvin, hands folded, feet barely touching the floor. Across the aisle, Brittany leaned in close to her own attorney, sleek as a news anchor in black and pearls, mascaraed eyes already shining. All rise, the bailiff called. The judge took her seat, late 50s, gray hair pulled back, expression that said she'd heard every story twice. Brittany's lawyer went first. Your Honor, he began smoothly, my clients took in Mrs. Lane out of compassion after her surgery. She promised to contribute, then refused to pay. She abruptly abandoned the household and, in retaliation, used her position on their mortgage to sabotage a critical refinance, jeopardizing their home and a pending purchase. They're asking for damages. He gestured toward Brittany. She dabbed delicately at the corner of one eye. The judge turned to Calvin, Mr. Ross. Calvin rose, buttoned his jacket, and rolled a cart of labeled folders forward. This isn't about abandonment, he said. This is about dependence, on Ms. Lane's credit, her signature, and her silence. He laid out the first exhibit. Here's the mortgage. Mrs. Lane is not a casual cosigner. She is a primary borrower, her name on every line that matters. Another folder, here are multiple refinance packets, each one requiring her signature. Never explained, never disclosed that cash was being taken out against her risk. The judge glanced through the pages, jaw tightening. And Calvin added, picking up a small speaker, a brief recording from Christmas morning. Brittany shifted, Marjorie's stomach dipped. The audio crackled, then filled the room. Are you paying rent this month or what? Marjorie's own voice, softer, it's Christmas, we can talk about money later. Then Brittany, louder, unmistakable, number pay or get out, I'm done babysitting you. Calvin switched it off. We also have public posts, he said, sliding printouts forward, accusing my client of financial sabotage and being parasitic, made while she recovered from surgery in the house she helped secure. The judge's gaze finally landed on Brittany, cool and direct. Is that you in the recording, Mrs. Lane? Brittany's lawyer tried, taken out of context. Yes or no, the judge cut in. Brittany swallowed, yes, but she. Where is your husband, the judge asked. He wasn't comfortable. Calvin nodded toward the back, he's here, Your Honor. The bailiff opened the door. Ethan stepped in, looking like he'd slept in his dress shirt. Mr. Lane, the judge said, do you wish to testify on your wife's behalf? Brittany turned toward him, eyes wide, urgent. Ethan looked at her, then at his mother. Something in his face sagged. No, Your Honor, he said quietly, I don't. The sound Brittany made was small and vicious, like a wounded animal. The judge shuffled the papers once, then set them down. There is no written rent agreement, she said. No legal duty for Ms. Lane to fund your lifestyle. She had every right to revoke her financial involvement and to leave a hostile environment. She lifted her chin. Case dismissed, in full, and Mrs. Lane, she fixed Brittany with a look, if I were you, I'd be very careful about filing any more actions against the woman who has been propping up your mortgage. The gavel cracked. Brittany went chalk white. Calvin leaned toward Marjorie. Congratulations, he murmured, you're officially not their scapegoat. As they stepped away from the table, Ethan took a half step toward his mother, mouth opening on her name. Before he could speak, Calvin's phone buzzed. He checked the screen, then glanced at Marjorie. That was the bank, he said softly. They're ready to move on the next part. He let the words hang. If you want, he added, we can talk about having them removed from the house you've been carrying. The second judge didn't bother dressing it up. This is about who has the legal right to control the property, she said, flipping through the file, not who feels more hurt. Marjorie sat beside Calvin at the petitioner's table. Across from them, Brittany clutched a wad of tissues. Ethan slumped beside her, eyes hollow. Calvin stood. Your Honor, my client is a co-borrower on the mortgage. The current occupants cannot qualify on their own, have missed payments, and have repeatedly harassed her for exercising her right to revoke consent. The bank is willing to work with Ms. Lane, but not while this continues. He slid the bank's letter forward. The judge scanned it, expression tightening. She turned to Brittany. Can you or your husband assume this loan in your names only? Yes, if she would just, Brittany started. Can you, the judge repeated, based on your income and credit alone? Ethan stared at his hands. No, Your Honor, he said quietly. There it was, laid bare. The judge set the paperwork down. Then Ms. Lane has every right to protect herself from further liability, she said. The bank confirms her standing. You have no written agreement for rent. What we have here is a mess of your own making. She picked up her pen. I'm granting the writ of recovery, she said. You have 30 days to vacate voluntarily. After that, the sheriff is authorized to remove you. Brittany shot to her feet. You're throwing a family out of their home. I'm allowing the legal owner to take control of a debt you cannot manage, the judge replied. Use your 30 days wisely. The gavel's crack made Brittany flinch. Downstairs, in a cramped sheriff's office, Marjorie signed the forms that turned judgment into action. A deputy walked her through dates and procedure. You don't have to be there on move-out day, he said. Some folks prefer not to see it. I'll think about it, she said. She just stepped into the parking lot when she heard her name. Grandma. Olivia hurried over, backpack askew, cheeks flushed from the cold. Dad said you were here, she said, breath hitching. Mom says you're having us kicked out, is that true? Tears filled her eyes. Marjorie took her hands. I'm not putting you on the street, she said softly. I'm just stopping them from using me to pretend everything's fine. I hate this, Olivia whispered, but I get it. She nodded once, shaky but real. Olivia, Brittany's voice sliced across the lot. She stormed toward them, waving the court order. Get away from her, she did this to us. Mom, Olivia started. You stand with your family, Brittany screamed, not the person destroying your home. She yanked Olivia toward the car. Olivia stumbled, then twisted at the last second to look back at Marjorie. Their eyes locked, Olivia mouthed, I understand. The doors slammed. The car peeled out, Brittany's muffled yelling visible through the glass. Marjorie stood alone in the exhaust and drifting snow as Calvin stepped up beside her. When the sheriff calls, he said, we'll have a date. He looked toward the distant street where the house sat waiting. Next time you walk through that door, he added quietly, it'll be on your terms. The squad car out front made the whole cul-de-sac stare. Its light bar was dark, but the emblem on the door was loud enough. Marjorie stepped out of Calvin's sedan, boots crunching on old ice. The January air bit at her cheeks. You sure you want to go in? Calvin asked quietly. My name's on the mortgage, she said. I can walk through the front door. Two deputies met them at the shoveled path. One read from his clipboard. Ms. Marjorie Lane, you're here to retrieve personal property. We'll be inside with you, they've been informed. He knocked, the door jerked open. Brittany stood there in leggings and an oversized sweatshirt, barefaced but bristling. You have got to be kidding me, she snapped. We have 30 days, this is harassment. Court order allows access, the deputy said. You'll need to let her in, ma'am. Brittany stepped aside, seething. Fine, take your stuff, what's left of it. The house smelled like stale coffee and old anger. Boxes lined the hallway. The Christmas tree still leaned in the living room corner, lights unplugged, ornaments drooping, brown needles scattered like ash. Marjorie walked straight to it. Really? Brittany scoffed. You're starting with the tree, we're about to be homeless and you're redecorating. Marjorie didn't answer. She slid ornaments off one by one, dropping them into an open box. Cheap glass, plastic snowflakes, a few nicer ones from her side of the family. Her fingers found a familiar lump, the chipped clay star Olivia had begged to keep at her place instead. That one, Marjorie set gently on the mantel and left. When the branches were bare, she yanked the whole fake tree up and out of its stand. Needles rained onto the rug. She carried the dead thing to the curb herself, leaving the metal stand alone in the middle of the living room, a black ring on the carpet like a burn mark. A deputy asked quietly, what else today? My rocking chair, she said, and my books. The chair still waited by the front window, cushion a little dented, wood rubbed smooth where countless hands had rested. A deputy helped carry it out. As they passed the kitchen doorway, Ethan stepped out, shoulders slumped. Mom, he said, voice raw, I'm sorry. She held his gaze. I needed you to speak earlier, she said, before judges and deputies had to do it for you. He looked like he might fold in on himself. In the living room, Brittany's voice snapped higher, turning on the deputy. You see this? She takes a chair while they throw us out. You're helping her steal my life. Ma'am, watch your tone, he warned. Marjorie gathered a small stack of books from the built-in shelf. Her novels, her old Bible, one picture book Olivia used to demand on repeat. That was all. No dishes, no decor, no leftovers of a life she'd already left. On the porch, the cold felt almost kind. Calvin shut the trunk over the rocking chair. Done? He asked. Yes, she said, the rest belongs to the bank. Behind her, Brittany's scream knifed through the open door. I am not the one who's going to be standing on the curb when they come, do you hear me? Marjorie turned her head just enough to see the empty metal stand in the middle of the living room, waiting for something that was never coming back. The deputies would return soon enough with the final order. And for the first time, she wondered who, exactly, would be left standing beside Brittany when that day finally hit. Thinking, North River Senior Living didn't feel like a facility. It felt like a slow exhale. The lobby had fake plants and a gas fireplace that whooshed on at 4 p.m. every day. Someone always had a jigsaw puzzle going on a card table. No one raised their voice unless the Vikings were on. On Thursdays, Marjorie sat at the long craft table with the quilting group. This block looks like a crime, Dorothy declared, holding up a chaotic square of clashing fabric. That's my grandson's baby quilt, Linda said, fitting honestly. Laughter rippled around the table. Marjorie felt it loosen something in her chest. Her own square was simple, soft blues and grays stitched in clean lines. You've got an eye, Pat said. You stay with us, we'll have you making a whole bedspread by summer. Later, alone in her apartment, the quiet didn't feel like punishment. Her rocking chair sat by the window, the one she'd carried out of the old house under police escort. Olivia's pencil drawing of their joined hands hung opposite the bed. The place smelled like laundry soap and whatever soup Grace had dropped off last. She realized, with a start, she'd gone hours without thinking about Brittany's voice. On Tuesdays, she walked to the library to read to kids. They tumbled around her feet on the alphabet rug, interrupting, arguing over which book came next. One boy tucked himself under her arm every week like she was assigned seating. Again, he'd demand, slapping the dinosaur book back into her lap. She'd do the voices. Their laughter drowned out the echo of other, crueler words. The knock on her apartment door came just after dark one Friday. Olivia stood in the hallway, hoodie up, backpack slung over one shoulder, cheeks pink from the cold. "I told Mom I was at Mia's," she said, rushing the words. "I took the bus, I just needed to see you." Marjorie pulled her in and held on. Olivia clung like she was made of wire and glass. "It's so bad at home," she muttered into Marjorie's shoulder. "Mom's angry all the time, Dad's nothing, I forgot what quiet feels like." They sat with hot cocoa, talking in low voices. Olivia kept scanning the apartment, rocking chair, tiny kitchen, the framed drawing on the wall. "This feels more like home than our house," she said finally. Marjorie went to the drawer by the sink and took out a small brass key on a plain ring. "I had an extra made," she said, "in case I needed to share." She set it in Olivia's palm. "This door isn't locked to you," she said, "only for you." Olivia's fingers closed around it like it might disappear. "If she finds this, she'll lose her mind," she whispered. "Then tell her it belongs to the woman paying this rent," Marjorie said. A startled laugh broke out of Olivia. "You're scary now," she said, in a good way. At the doorway, she looked back, one hand in her pocket around the key. "I don't know what's going to happen when we have to leave," she said. "I don't know where we're going." Marjorie saw it then, not just fear in her eyes, but a question. "Neither do they," she answered. "That's the part they're not used to." After Olivia left, the apartment felt too quiet for a moment. Marjorie stood in the middle of the small living room, listening to the hum of the fridge, the faint TV from down the hall, her own steady breathing. She glanced at the coat closet by the door. And for the first time, she caught herself wondering exactly how much space there was on the floor for one more suitcase. The word evil found her before she went looking for it. Grace showed up at her apartment door with a tablet under one arm and a grocery bag in the other. "You're trending," she said, marching to the kitchen table, "in the world's smallest, pettiest way." She pulled up Brittany's latest Facebook post, a long rant over a filtered selfie in her car. "Some people think grandma automatically means good. Try watching an evil old woman steal your house, your stability, your kids' future." "I'm done protecting her image." Subtle as always, Grace muttered. Marjorie folded dish towels, each crease precise. "She keeps using the word steal for something I paid on for years," she said. "Interesting choice." Comments rolled in sympathy emojis, "You're so strong," people offering spare couches. Then slowly different voices joined. "A former neighbor, court records are public, Brit. Dismissing the case doesn't make her evil." "A PTA mom, didn't she co-sign your mortgage?" "Someone from church, Marjorie watched our boys for free for 2 summers. That woman is not what you're describing." Grace's eyebrows climbed. "The crowd discovered facts," she said. "Miracle of social media." An hour later, Ethan posted something himself. No pictures, just black text on a white background. "I let my wife talk about my mother in ways that weren't fair. Mom helped us get that house. She didn't deserve what happened, I'm sorry." No tags, no excuses. It wasn't much, but it was the first time he'd stood anywhere near the truth in public. By evening, Marjorie had 3 missed calls from a local reporter and 2 emails from a podcast wanting your side of this powerful story. She made tea, sat at her little table, and deleted each one. When Calvin texted, "Talk to the press if you want, but remember, everything becomes evidence," she wrote back, "My dignity doesn't need an audience," and left it there. Olivia arrived on a windy Saturday, not sneaking this time, just knocking, backpack slung over one shoulder. "I told Mom I'm at study group," she said, cheeks pink. "Dad drove me, but he stayed in the car. He said, 'Tell your grandma hi.'" Her voice shook on the last word. "It's unbearable there, for real. The house is listed, there's boxes everywhere. Mom's furious at everyone. Dad's a ghost. I can't breathe." She dropped the backpack with a thud. "I want to live here." Marjorie's fingers tightened around her mug. "Olivia." "I know she's going to say you turned me against her," Olivia rushed on. "She says it already, but this is me, I'm saying it. I want quiet, I want honesty, I want you." Marjorie searched her face. "If you move in with me, that choice has to be yours," she said. "Not mine using your mouth, only if it's your voice, not mine." Olivia's eyes filled, but her chin didn't wobble. "This is my voice," she said. "Dad said he won't fight it if it's what I want. Mom will lose it either way." She nudged the backpack with her foot. "I brought some stuff just in case." Marjorie exhaled, long and shaky. "Then we'd better see where your toothbrush fits," she said. Olivia let out a wet laugh and launched forward, hugging her so hard her chair scooted back. As they carried the backpack toward the bedroom, Marjorie's phone buzzed on the counter. Grace, then Calvin, names flashing, questions waiting, paperwork, school forms, fallout. She let it ring. For a few blessed seconds, it was just two people in a small, quiet apartment, making space in a closet. But beneath the soft rustle of hangers, a thought pressed in cold and sharp. Brittany hadn't lost a single battle quietly yet. The forms didn't look like much, but they weighed down the whole table. School address change, emergency contact updates, a slim, serious-looking document Calvin had emailed and labeled temporary care authorization. Olivia chewed the end of the pen. Feels like I'm signing away my soul, she said. You're signing for where your socks live, Marjorie said. Souls are separate paperwork. Olivia huffed a small laugh and bent over the first page. Her hand wobbled on the first signature, steadied on the second, grew more certain by the third. Dad already signed this part, she asked, tapping the parent line. He did, Marjorie said. Brittany can scream, but your father put ink where it counts. Olivia swallowed, then finished the last form. So that's it, I live here now. Marjorie stacked the papers, aligning the edges. That's it on paper, she said. The rest started the day you took the bus here with a backpack. A knock came, soft, uneven. Ethan. Olivia stiffened. I'll be in my room, she muttered, slipping down the hall. Marjorie opened the door. He stood there, hat in hand, looking like he hadn't slept in days. Can we talk? He asked, and just us. She let him in, pointed him to the stool at the counter. He sat, turning the hat over and over. She's really moving in, he said. She already has, Marjorie replied. Today just gave it a file number. He winced. Brittany says you've been trying to steal her since day one, he said, that you finally won. Your wife is allergic to the truth, Marjorie said, but she's right about one thing. I do want Olivia safe. If you want that too, this part is simple. He pressed his palms to his eyes. I don't know how to fix anything, he admitted. The money, the house, my marriage, I keep waiting for someone to tell me what to do. For the first time, Marjorie let the silence stretch. That's your job now, she said. Mine is making sure your daughter has a bed and a person who actually answers when a school nurse calls. I'll sign what concerns her. I won't sign away consequences for you. He stared at her, hope and desperation wrestling in his face. So you're not coming back, helping us with the bank? No, Ethan, she said gently. I already helped, you spent it. He flinched like she'd hit him, then nodded, slow and defeated. I'm sorry, Mom, he whispered. I know, she said. Go home and be a father, not a middleman. When the door closed behind him, the apartment felt lighter, not lonelier. Olivia emerged, eyes bright. Did he freak out? He's recalibrating, Marjorie said, which is overdue. They spent the evening pushing her life into the corners of the small bedroom, posters taped slightly crooked, sketchbooks stacked on the dresser, a chipped mug of colored pencils on the windowsill. Marjorie thumbtacked Olivia's quilt block, the blue and gray one she'd made at the senior center, above the pillow. It's weird, Olivia said, flopping onto the bed. Feels temporary and permanent at the same time. That's life, Marjorie said. We just usually don't get the labels. After Olivia fell asleep, Marjorie pulled out the shoebox of old journals and flipped through years of her own handwriting. Every "don't worry, I'll cover it." Every "he just needs time." Every signature that had let Ethan stay a boy inside a man's body. On the last page from the week after Christmas, she'd written, "Next time I sign something, it will be because I choose the cost." Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Calvin. When you're ready, his text read, we can update your will. Clean slate, no rush. Marjorie looked from the glowing screen to the silhouette in the next room, her granddaughter curled around a pillow in a space that finally felt like sanctuary. For the first time, she picked up the phone to reply, and started planning who exactly would be written in, and who this time would be written out. Marjorie stared at the final page of her will, the weight of the ink in her hand anchoring her to the decision she had made. The stack of papers was thin, but the gravity of the words on them pressed against her chest. Brittany erased, Ethan conditional, Olivia full inheritance, no strings. Calvin stood by, his quiet presence a steadying force as he checked the documents one last time. Outside, snow drifted in soft waves, blanketing the world in white. Inside, the silence between them felt almost sacred, the air thick with the significance of this moment. Marjorie set the pen down with a sharp click. She looked out the window where the snow fell like quiet whispers, covering everything in its path as if offering a fresh start. It's done, she said softly, her voice clear but filled with a quiet finality. Calvin nodded, placing his notary stamp on the last page. The small thud of the stamp felt like the closing of a door, an irrevocable action taken. There was no going back. She stood up slowly, her knee protesting, but her mind was steady. Every decision, every stroke of the pen had led to this point. She had taken control of her own story at last. She told me to get out, Marjorie murmured, her voice steady but tinged with something close to relief. So I got out of her story. Calvin glanced at her, his eyes offering the comfort of understanding. It's not just her story anymore, he said, his tone firm. You've rewritten yours. Marjorie felt the weight of his words sink in, and for the first time in a long while she didn't feel the need to explain herself. She wasn't trapped by the past anymore. The decisions she had made, the ones that had once been for others, were now for her. As she gazed out the window, the world outside covered in snow, she realized that, for the first time in years, she could breathe deeply and freely, her life truly her own. The last thing she heard was the soft hiss of snow against the window pane. The world had shifted, and in its stillness she found a sense of peace. The apartment was quiet that Christmas Eve, the only sound the soft crackle of the fireplace. The world outside was lost in a blanket of snow, its quiet cold pressing against the windows like a promise. Inside, the warmth of the room, the glow of the lights, felt like an invitation to BR. Breathe deeply for the first time in years. Olivia sat at the piano, her fingers light on the keys, playing a soft, familiar tune. The notes were delicate, as though they were floating in the air, suspended between them. It was the same song Marjorie had heard her play when she was young, and the same one that had filled the empty spaces in the house when Olivia had come to visit her. Marjorie leaned back in her chair, watching her granddaughter, her heart swelling with something soft and peaceful. The lights on the tree twinkled gently, their reflections dancing on the walls. There was no rush tonight, no demands, no expectations, just this moment. When the last note faded, Olivia turned, meeting her gaze. "Grandma," she said softly, "this feels like home." Marjorie smiled, her heart full. "It is," she said quietly, and the truth of it settled between them, filling the space. The soft warmth of the room, the glow of the tree, the gentle hum of the fire, it was all so different from the past. No more shouting, no more blame, just a small apartment, a quilted throw, a piano, and a girl who had found her way back to peace. Olivia stood and walked over to the window, her hand brushing against the frost on the glass. "I always loved how Christmas feels," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "but I didn't realize it could feel like this." Marjorie leaned back, watching Olivia as she returned to her side of the room. There was a confidence to her now, a quiet strength that hadn't been there before, a calm that Marjorie had worked so hard to protect, even when the world around them threatened to crumble. Olivia came back to the couch, sitting down beside her. Marjorie reached over and took her hand, feeling the warmth of her fingers against her own. "This year we'll make it through," Marjorie said softly, together. The soft jingle of a Christmas carol played from the radio, a song of renewal and fresh starts. The clock ticked in the background, counting down to midnight. Olivia squeezed her hand. "I think it's the best Christmas I've ever had," she said, her voice full of wonder. "The best one for both of us." Marjorie glanced at the clock, then at the small Christmas tree by the window. It was the first one she'd decorated in years, the first one where there were no arguments about the lights or complaints about the mess. It was hers in every sense. No one had to approve, it had been hers from the start. She reached for the cocoa on the table, holding the mug between her hands as the steam rose to meet her face. They clinked their mugs together, the gentle sound of ceramic a soft reminder that they'd arrived here at this moment. "To new beginnings," Marjorie said, her voice thick with emotion. "To us," Olivia added, her eyes bright with quiet certainty. They drank their cocoa in companionable silence, the warmth filling them from the inside out. The snow continued to fall outside, the world hushed, as if the earth itself were giving them this space to be, to breathe, and to start again. Marjorie looked at the tree, the ornaments glimmering in the soft light, and realized for the first time that she had saved this Christmas for herself. A distant memory tugged at her, Christmases from years ago when everything had seemed like it would break apart. But tonight, as they sat together, Marjorie understood that it had all led to this. She had built something strong, something that couldn't be taken, not anymore. The world beyond the window was cold and silent, but inside, in that small, warm apartment, they had everything they needed. The knock came just after dinner on New Year's Eve. Marjorie hadn't expected it, hadn't thought about it at all, really, but there he was, standing on her doorstep, shoulders slumped, eyes red-rimmed. Ethan. His hand hovered just over the doorbell before he let it fall with a long, exhausted sigh. She didn't invite him in. She didn't have to. There was no formality left between them, no pretense. "Mom," he said, voice thick, "can we talk?" She stepped back and let him in, but kept the distance between them. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, his face drawn and pale, like the weight of everything he'd done had finally collapsed on him all at once. He closed the door behind him, but neither of them moved for a moment. The apartment, still decorated with the remnants of Christmas, a tree with a few lights still flickering, a small stack of books on the table, felt as if it had already stepped away from the rest of the world, like a sanctuary only the two of them occupied now. Ethan cleared his throat, looking anywhere but at her. I'm sorry for everything." His voice cracked and he dropped his head, unable to meet her eyes. "I don't know how to say it. I didn't realize how much I was letting her pull me. I should have seen it, Mom. I should have seen what she was doing to you." Marjorie's heart tightened as she stood still, unsure whether to comfort him or let him unravel. Dee watched him fall apart over the years, but this was different. This wasn't just his usual guilt, this was real. "I'm sorry," he repeated, stepping closer, his hands shaking. "Please, can we fix this? Can you forgive me?" Marjorie glanced at the window, where snowflakes drifted slowly down, blanketing the world outside in a serene silence. "And Brittany," she asked, her voice low but steady, "is she sorry too?" Ethan looked up at her, and for the first time she saw how much pain was in his eyes, how much regret, how much fear of losing it all. He swallowed, shaking his head slowly. "No," he said, his voice breaking. "She's still convinced she's the one who's right. She's furious with me. She won't even admit she was wrong." His shoulders sagged. "I know I should have been stronger. I failed you, I failed her, and now." He trailed off, his eyes pleading with her. Marjorie looked at him for a long moment. Ethan wasn't the same boy she had raised, but perhaps, just perhaps, he was finally starting to be the man he needed to be. The man who could face the truth, even when it hurt. "No," she said quietly, "she's not welcome here anymore." Ethan's face fell, his lips quivered as he nodded, not surprised, just defeated. "I understand," he whispered. "I deserve that." Marjorie felt a pang of something, sadness maybe, or relief, she didn't know. What she did know was that for the first time in years, she didn't feel obligated to soften the blow for him. He would have to live with the choices he'd made, just as she had lived with hers. The silence between them stretched on, and as Ethan stood there, shoulders hunched, Marjorie felt an overwhelming sense of finality. She could feel the weight of everything she'd been through, everything she'd endured, settling on her shoulders, gently, not crushingly. The snow fell outside, soft and steady, as if nothing had changed in the world. And maybe it hadn't, maybe it was just her. "You wanted me to pay rent," Marjorie murmured, her voice a little hoarse. "I paid with silence and I got everything back." Ethan didn't respond. He just looked at her, his eyes full of sorrow and self-loathing, the consequences finally hitting him all at once. Marjorie turned her gaze to the window, feeling the cold drift in through the thin glass. The snow continued to fall, thick and quiet, like the world had hit pause for just a moment, holding its breath as the two of them stood there. She wasn't angry anymore, not at him, not at Brittany. She had let go of all of it, and with that release there was only peace. She had fought her battles, but they weren't her battles anymore. She had taken back her life piece by piece, and now it was hers. And as Ethan turned to leave, the door clicking shut behind him, Marjorie felt a soft, quiet resolve fill the space where the guilt had once lingered. "On Christmas," she whispered to herself, watching the snowflakes swirl outside, she shouted, "Pay the rent or get out." I got out and left her frozen in the doorway of a life she'll never enter again. With that, she turned, and for the first time in a long while, she felt truly free.